Chapter 146, New Routine and Advanced Fuinjutsu. Fujin woke up at 4:30 a.m. After freshening up, he turned up his training seal's power to 60% and left for the training ground he had booked. He began the physical training that Renjiro used to put them under. He trained hard till 9 a.m. After a short break to rest and eat, he began practicing the air bullet jutsu. His aim was to reduce its required hand signs to 0. He trained for a couple of hours, before taking a break for lunch. He trained another couple of hours after lunch, till his chakras started to drop low. He sighed, so stupid. I didn't consider the fact that I will run out of chakra. Especially while practicing B-rank jutsus. Anyways, what to do? I could increase my stamina by consuming soldier pills. But it won't be healthy in the long run. I guess I should just devote time to other activities. When I am close to running out of chakra, I should go to the library and read Fuinjutsu scrolls. Though Ichiraku comes first. And once my chakra has regenerated, I can do something less chakra intensive. So I suppose Taijutsu or Kenjutsu. Alright, let's do that. I'll practice sword fighting with a shadow clone. Fujin left for Ichiraku. He filled his stomach with a few bowls of ramen and went to the library. He thought, I have completed the Fuinjutsu scrolls from sections E and D during the academy days. Let's see what the scroll in section C has. He entered the C section of the library. He searched for a bit and found the scroll he was looking for. He grabbed the scroll and went to a desk and sat down. The title of the scroll was, Intermediate Fuinjutsu Guide. He opened it and began reading it. He read the entire scroll in one go and summarized, so finger carving seal is at intermediate level. And so is the 5 seal barrier. Considering that this barrier stopped a Jinchuriki, a medical ninja surpassed only by Tsunade, an S-rank ninja and a former S-rank ninja. I thought that it would be much higher in rank. Still, it is very complicated. Learning it will be tough. Binding cloth is also here. It was what was used to seal the Edo Tensei. But, the seal tag isn't here. Binding cloth without that sealing tag is kinda useless. And lastly, there are details about making explosion tags. Sigh, there isn't much in this scroll. It was disappointing. I hope that the scroll in the B section has better and more Fuinjutsu. He closed the scroll, put it back where it was and went to the B section. The number of scrolls in the B section was very low. But, when he found what he was looking for, he was surprised. Fujin thought, what the hell? The C section barely had anything related to Fuinjutsu. And this section has 6 scrolls. He began reading the names of each scroll. They were titled Advanced Fuinjutsu Theory, Miscellaneous Seals I, Miscellaneous Seals II, Miscellaneous Seals III, Battlefield Seals, Sealing Tags. Fujin grabbed the Advanced Fuinjutsu Theory scroll and began reading. This scroll had a lot of advanced level theories about Fuinjutsu. It introduced a few more special characters that were needed to make more seals. And it described the information about other scrolls. After reading, Fujin analyzed, so many additional theories. But many of them haven't been implemented successfully yet. Anyways, the miscellaneous seals scrolls apparently have a lot of seals to make daily life easier. They were made for the benefit of the common people and to promote safer trade and transport. Looks like it was a project undertaken by Uzushiagakuer, but left incomplete due to its destruction. The Battlefield Seals scroll has seals that can be used on the battlefield. Though they aren't useful in an actual battle, they can be used for other purposes. And lastly, the sealing tag scroll. This is what I am looking forward to the most. Additionally, the scroll also says that if I manage to learn all the seals in these 5 scrolls, I will be considered a seal master. He put back the scroll and grabbed the sealing tag scroll and began reading it. His excitement dropped a bit. He analyzed, there are only 3 seals here. The sealing tag, which can be used to seal Edo Tensei. It can also be used to stop summons and has quite a few applications. Then there is the chakra suppression seal that Renjiro used. And lastly, the barrier tag. It can be used to form barriers. Though it needs maintenance. So I can't use this and leave. Anyways, though not plenty, they are good. Kinda wished that the 4 symbol seal or 5 elements seal was here. But looks like they will be in the A section. Or at least I hope so. It would suck if it isn't available in the library at all. He changed the scroll for battlefield seals and began reading. This scroll had a lot of seals. After reading them all, Fujin analyzed, wow. I didn't think this would be so useful. There are seals for all sorts of battlefield applications. Fujin's surprise wasn't unwarranted. The scroll had seals to isolate sound. It even had seals to absorb light and make a place or object very difficult to see. In addition, there were seals to prevent being seen by the Byakugan or the Sharingan or even by sensors. Fujin guessed that these were the seals used by those Kiri squads who they eliminated inside the Land of Fire. There were a lot more useful seals in the scroll. Fujin was very impressed. He thought, no wonder Uzushiagakure was eliminated. These seals are very potent. If an entire army learned these seals, they would become a nightmare to face. Especially in the midst of battle. Finally, he began reading the miscellaneous scrolls. While reading, Fujin's eyes lit up. The seals that were in the meditation room in the central tower of the Forest of Death in these scrolls. Even the seals on his training seal were in these scrolls. After reading all 3 scrolls, he concluded, these seals are good too. If the 5 big villages had cooperated and focused on these, then this world might have been a much better place. These seals are very good to develop this world quickly. Anyways, the most useful seals for me would be the ones used in that meditation room. In addition, there are also storage seals that can store living things safely. These too could be useful. After reading all the scrolls, Fujin put them back and sat in the library. He analyzed, there is a heck of a lot to learn in Fuinjutsu. Actually, much of the stuff in the B section should have been placed in the C section. But I guess the village wanted to restrict their access to elite Chunins and above. I'll need a lot of time to master these. Fortunately, I do have a lot of time. Additionally, I should check all the scrolls in the B section. It would be good if I find any good jutsus. More importantly, I want to see if there are any barrier jutsus. But, I guess they can wait. Let me complete my current plans. He left the library and returned back to the training ground. He made a hand sign and created a shadow clone. The shadow clone appeared in front of him. Fujin summoned a couple of normal swords from his scroll. Both grabbed one sword each. They began fighting without exchanging any words. The main focus of the spar was swordsmanship. Neither used chakra flow. After a couple of hours, Fujin and his clone were standing in front of each other. Both were breathing hard. The clone stabbed the sword into the ground and said, "My chakra is exhausted." It dispelled. Fujin received all his memories and experiences. Fujin thought, this is good. Getting experience from both sides provides me with both perspectives. He sealed the sword back and left for Yakiniku. He needed a lot of meat to keep up with his planned routine. From the next day onwards, Fujin settled into this routine. In the morning, he would do physical training. That would be followed up by practicing and trying to master the air bullet jutsu. Once he ran low on chakra, he would either go to the library and read the seals or meditate. And he would end his training with Kenjutsu practice. Chapter 147, New House. On the seventh day of this routine, when Fujin returned back to his home, he noticed an envelope attached to his door. Fujin thought, that's new. He ripped it off and began reading. He thought, oh, this is a notice to call me to the mission office in the Hokage's office tomorrow at 8:15 a.m. Did the hot water daimyo send the bounty rewards? The next morning, Fujin began training once again. He ended his morning training an hour earlier and went to the Hokage building. On reaching, he saw Hoka and Miko. He went up to them. Hoka asked, "Hey Fujin, how have you been doing?" Fujin replied, "Well, I got back to training. What about you guys?" Miko gave Fujin the stink eye and said, "Back to training already? You need to get a hobby, Fujin." Fujin smirked and replied, "Training is a hobby." Miko scoffed at his reply. Fujin looked at her and said in his mind, "Unlike you, I have more than a year to live." Hoka said, "Stop arguing. Let's go inside." The trio went inside. Fujin was thinking, Naruto and Sasuke should be 7 years old when the academy starts. So I guess the Uchiha massacre will happen in the next 12 months. My transmigration shouldn't have affected the politics around this incident. The only thing that could be considered is Hiruzen teaching Miko. But, I don't think it'll have much of an impact. They reached the Hokage's office and knocked on the door. Heitake Takao opened the door and looked at them and said, "The bandit exterminators." Just 3 words instantly annoyed the trio. All their faces became dark. He said, "Come in." The trio entered the office with dark faces. Hiruzen stopped doing paperwork and looked at them. He wondered, why do they look like they have come here to give me money instead of coming here to take money? Takao opened a drawer and grabbed 3 packets. He handed one to each one of them. Hiruzen said, "You guys did a great job in the land of hot water." The joint commander of the mission, Takahei, and their daimyo praised your work a lot. He looked at the package in their hands and said, "These are the bounty rewards that daimyo has sent for you. Fujin, yours has 4.5 million ryo. Miko and Hoka, your packets have 2.5 million ryo each." Fujin saw his packet and thought, rank missions give a shitload of money. Hiruzen's eyes didn't miss Fujin looking at his packet. He thought, this brat is very greedy. I have to ensure that he doesn't pick up any bad habits. He asked, "What are you 3 planning to do with the money?" Miko answered, "Nothing. My mom will take it all and put it in the bank. I can have access to it when I am older." Hoka said, "Same here. Though I'll be asking my dad to get me more tools to improve my strength." Hiruzen looked at Fujin, "What about you Fujin?" Fujin thought for a bit and said, "I'll probably buy a new house. The one that the academy assigned me is too small and kinda old." Hiruzen was surprised. He never thought that Fujin would consider housing. Most orphans would live in their assigned houses for a long time. They would usually move out only when they get married. Hoka and Miko were surprised as well. Hoka said, "That's good. Good luck Fujin." Miko added, "Yes, good luck Fujin. Invite us when it's ready." Fujin nodded. Hiruzen said, "Good. Takao, arrange for a proper contractor to meet up with Fujin." "Good luck Fujin." Fujin nodded and thanked him. They left the office. Takao followed Fujin. He said, "Fujin, follow me." Miko and Hoka said goodbyes and left for their respective homes. Fujin followed Takao. He led Fujin to a huge shop. It was quite close to the Hokage building. Fujin observed the shop. Many workers were working here. And all seemed busy. He entered and said, "Old man Ag." An old man looked at the entrance. He was around 60 years old. All his hair was white, but his back was still upright. Seeing Takao, he walked towards him. Takao began walking towards him. Fujin followed. Ag said, "Takao, to what do I owe the pleasure? Does Lord Hokage require my services?" Takao shook his head. He said, "This young man is planning to buy a house. Lord Hokage sees a lot of promise in him. So he asked me to recommend you to this young man." Ag took a good look at Fujin. He suddenly realized and said, "Fujin-kun. I remember watching you in the Chunin exams. No wonder Lord Hokage values your talent." Fujin thought, "Wow, I didn't think I'd be recognized. Does that make me a minor celebrity?" Haha. The old man continued, "I actually lost some money in the betting. But seeing promising young men like you was worth it. Ha 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 ha." He began laughing loudly. Fujin watched him with a deadpan look. Takao looked at Fujin and said, "Fujin, old man Ag here is one of the best architects in Konoha. He has built many houses and usually has a few on sale too. He will give you the best deals. So choose the house you like." Fujin nodded. Takao left. Ag watched his back as he left. Though Takao spoke only a few simple sentences, which any outsider might think were casual, there were a lot of hidden messages in them. Even Fujin didn't notice any. When he said that Hokage found Fujin promising, it meant that Fujin was someone with a bright future. Ag shouldn't try to be underhanded with him or take advantage of his younger age. When Takao told Fujin that Ag would give him the best deals, it was actually a message for Ag to give Fujin the best deal he could and only make minimal profits. Ag obviously picked up on them. This wasn't the first time he had interacted with Takao. While he was impressed with Fujin's dominance in the Chunin exams, he was more impressed with the fact that he made Takao speak for him. Usually, Ag would give the job of showing houses to one of his employees. But since Takao brought Fujin, he decided to attend to him. He looked at Fujin and asked with a smile on his face, "So Fujin-kun, have you decided on what type of house you want?" Fujin thought for a bit and answered, "I haven't decided much. The only requirements I have are that it be big and spacious." Ag looked at Fujin for a second and thought, that is pretty much like saying nothing. Fujin looked at him and asked, "Can you show me some houses first?" He said, "Sure. Can you tell me what your budget is?" Fujin replied, "That will depend on the house." Ag was speechless by the reply. He sighed and thought, this will be a long day. He didn't know how right he was. He nodded and said, "All right. Follow me." He began walking outside. All the prime area in Konoha was already sold and occupied. So no place near the Hokage's buildings was for sale. They walked a few blocks away. After walking a bit, they reached a place where 5 houses had just been built. Ag said, "In this area, I have just constructed these 5 houses. Check if you like any of them." Fujin observed the houses. From the outside, all looked great. All were built on an area of around 1,200 square feet. And all houses had a spacious living room on the ground floor along with a kitchen and a bathroom. On the upper floor, there were multiple master bedrooms. Fujin thought, not bad. The houses are good. Well, at least much better than my current one. But, none of them has a basement. I could try to build a basement using the camp jutsu, but I am not sure that it won't harm the foundation of the house. Also, the houses are kinda close to each other. Though they are separated by a fence, I'd like it if the houses were farther apart. Ag stayed outside and watched Fujin. He just kept flickering from one house to another. He chuckled, kids. So enthusiastic about everything. Though this one would not be in his budget. Unless of course Lord Hokage is paying for it. After a few minutes, Fujin left the house. He looked to be in thought. Ag asked, did you like the houses, Fujin-kun? Fujin looked at him smiling. He answered, yes, they are well built. But, do you have any houses that are not close to other houses? Also, it'd be great if they have basements. Ag didn't expect that reply. He thought, these are a few of my best houses. But he doesn't look impressed at all. Chapter 148, Picky Youngster. He said, why do you want your house to not be close to other houses? Fujin tilted his head and said, I did say I want them to be spacious, right? Ag was surprised again. He thought, what do you plan on doing with so much space? He said, these are my houses with large empty spaces around them. I do have a few with even larger space. But they don't have any basements. As for the ones with basements, they don't have a large space around them. Fujin thought and said, can you show them to me? Ag nodded and said, sure, follow me. They began walking to the next house. While walking, Fujin asked, how much were those houses for Mr. Ag? Ag replied, I can sell one of those houses to you for 2.2 million ryo. He thought, they can go for over 3 million ryo. But due to Takao's words, I can sell them for just above my bottom line. Fujin was surprised. He thought, so an elemental crystal is worth more than one house? Renjiro wasn't kidding about their rarity. Ag took Fujin to look at a lot of houses. The one Fujin liked the most was a two-story house built in a 1,500 square foot area. The land around the house was unoccupied. But it didn't have a basement. And the roads around the houses were quite busy. Since the house was in a good area, it was very pricey too. After seeing all of the houses, Fujin asked, do you construct new houses as well? Ag was tired from taking Fujin on a tour. He answered, yes, I do. Fujin asked, so, can you make a new house for me with a new design? Ag's eyes twitched. After hours of touring, he wants me to build a new house. He said, building a new house takes time. And you will have to buy the land first. Fujin looked at him with a confused look and asked, don't you have contacts with any sellers of land? How did you build all these houses? Ag didn't reply. He didn't want to argue against Fujin. It just felt like hitting his head on a wall. He sighed and said, yes. But buying land suddenly is very expensive. Especially if you want it in a good area. Only the land at the outskirts of the village would be cheaply available. Fujin thought a bit and said, being on the outskirts of the village doesn't matter. It'll be best if it's closer to the training grounds. Ag said, okay. I'll contact a friend of mine. Meet me back at the shop after a couple of hours. Fujin nodded. He said, thank you for taking the time to show me the houses. Eiji's dissatisfaction with Fujin decreased. He watched Fujin as he left and sighed, he is an orphan. No wonder he was speaking so formally and without much emotion. I guess that he is still an innocent kid. But, why are his demands for a house so strict? He sighed and went to contact his old friend who usually sold him the land. Fujin had lunch and went to Eiji's shop in the afternoon. On entering the shop, he spotted another old guy next to Eiji. When Fujin arrived, they showed him a map of Konoha that showed the plots he had for sale. There were 5 that were suitable for Fujin. However, 3 of them were close to the residential areas of the Uchiha, Hyuga, and Aburame clans. Fujin didn't consider those. One of the plots caught his eye though. It was a 2,500 square meters plot. It was about 100 meters away from the civilian residential area. No clan was close to this place. And training ground 23 was very close to here. Fujin visited the plot along with the 2 old men and decided to buy it. Eiji was shocked again. Today was not a good day for his heart. He asked, "You want to buy the whole plot and not just a small part of it to build your house?" His friend looked at him with a frown on his face. He was stopping his business. Fujin said, "Oh, we can buy a small part of it as well. What's its cost?" Eiji's friend replied, "That area is very far from the center of the village. So the prices are cheap. I can sell a 1,000 square feet area plot for 100,000 ryo. But, if you buy the entire plot, I can sell it to you for 2 million ryo. Fujin thought, not bad, that's much better. Though still quite expensive. Anyways, I don't have any big expenses lined up. He looked at Eiji and asked, "How much will constructing a house cost?" Eiji answered, "It depends on how big a house you want. A house like the ones I showed you first will cost around 500,000 ryo to construct." Fujin replied, "Great." He looked at his friend and said, "I'll buy the entire plot then. Can you go any cheaper, old man?" Eiji and his friend only had one thought, how rich is this kid? Fujin bargained over the price for a bit. In the end, he bought the whole plot for 1.6 million ryo. They did all the paperwork for the land transfer. Fujin then discussed the design of the house with Eiji. Eiji showed some of his plans. In the end, Fujin decided on a great-looking design, built on an area of 4,000 square feet at the center of the plot, with 3 stories and 2 basement floors. They began discussing the price and the time needed to construct the house. Eiji had seen Fujin bargain earlier. He said, "Don't bother discussing the price of construction with me. I'll quote you the lowest price. Constructing this house will cost you 1.8 million ryo and it will take around 7 to 8 months to be entirely built." Fujin frowned, 7 to 8 months? That long? Eiji sighed and replied, "Do you think making a house is easy, kid? My men will first have to dig a deep hole to lay down a proper foundation. The digging itself will take 2 to 3 months. And your house will be very big. So we will need time to make it properly." Fujin thought, that's reasonable. He asked, "I have one question, old man. Will you be digging the entire ground, or do you have to leave some pillars for support?" Eiji was surprised by that question. He didn't expect to hear it from Fujin. He replied, "We will be digging the entire ground. Pillars made from the ground aren't very sturdy." Fujin said, "Okay, I can get the digging done quickly then." Eiji asked, "Do you have an affinity for earth-nature manipulation?" Fujin was surprised. He thought, I didn't expect a civilian to know about nature manipulation. Makes sense though. There should have been other ninjas who did the same. He nodded, yes. AG replied, that's great. All right then. Once you have completed digging, I will reduce the construction cost depending on how much work is done. Fujin nodded and asked, another question. Will this house be able to withstand any attacks? AG replied, only very weaker ones. If you want, I can invite a seal master to inscribe seals on your house to make it more sturdy. But even then, it won't be able to stop something very powerful. But, we are in Konoha. Such attacks won't happen on us anyways. Fujin looked at him thinking, yeah, there will be 2 deadly attacks on us within a decade. The house is certain to be destroyed by pain. I'd just prefer it to survive sound and sand invasion. Fujin said, all right. You can invite the seal master then. AG replied, inviting a seal master will increase the costs. Fujin asked, how much? AG answered, I will have to talk with him. You can expect an additional 500,000 to 1 million ryo cost. Fujin's eyes widened. He thought, fucking million ryo for just inscribing some seals? If money could be used to get stronger, I'd have stopped going for missions and worked as a seal master all the time. Fujin said, all right. AG replied, I will need a week to test this ground and decide on a plan to proceed. So come to my shop after a week. Once I have marked everything, you can dig the hole. Fujin nodded and left. While leaving he thought, I didn't think that I would blow up almost the entire bounty rewards on the house. I could have saved money on the seal master. But I haven't ever professionally worked as a seal master other than selling storage scrolls. And, putting seals on the house once it is done won't be as effective as applying them while constructing it. Let's forget it, I am not short on money. So it's fine. I will have to inspect the seals later though. I doubt a professional would try anything funny, but it is always better to be vigilant. Fuinjutsu has a lot of applications. Chapter 149, First Mission as the Team Leader. The next day, Fujin returned to his training routine. A few days later, Fujin was breathing heavily. However, there was a big smile on his face. The trees in front of him were riddled with holes. He exclaimed, finally. I can perform vacuum bullets without using hand signs. In 11 days of training, Fujin had mastered the air bullet jutsu. The hand signs for the vacuum bullet jutsu were the same as the air bullet jutsu. He was able to perform it without hand signs a minute after mastering the air bullet jutsu. He practiced the vacuum bullet jutsu till he was comfortable and then began practicing the infinite breakthrough jutsu. On the appointed day, he met up with AG. AG had marked his entire plot. AG showed him the markings and told him where and how deep to dig. AG and his employees cleared the area and watched with anticipation. They were looking forward to Fujin's display. In the past, they had seen some amazing feats. Unfortunately, they would be disappointed. They stood for a couple of hours to see Fujin use Earth Camp Jutsu a few hundred times to dig up the hole. In fact, most got bored and left with disappointment. Fujin checked his work and left the hole. He walked towards AG only to see a dumbfounded expression on his face. He asked, "What's the matter?" AG sighed and replied, "Nothing." Fujin said, "Please check if everything is all right." AG complained in his heart, "How can there be any mistakes when you work so slowly?" He said, "It's all right. It'll decrease your construction cost by 400,000 ryo. I also talked with the seal master. We decided on 600,000 ryo cost. Is that all right?" Fujin nodded and asked, "Can I watch when he inscribes the seals?" AG said, sure. It's your house after all. I'll send a worker to your house to give you the message. Fujin thanked him and left back for training. The next afternoon, Fujin was practicing the infinite breakthrough jutsu. He had already learned how to use it without any hand signs. Its similarity with the great breakthrough jutsu allowed Fujin to master it quickly. He was now practicing supercharging this jutsu quickly. However, he suddenly stopped practicing and looked in a direction. He thought, someone entered the training ground? Who? The chakra's signature is very low. So either he is weak or good at hiding his chakra level. The person Fujin sensed was moving towards him. Fujin stopped practicing and waited to see who it was. After a little while, a young man in his early 20s appeared. He looked at Fujin and asked, "Hey, you are Fujin, right?" Fujin nodded and asked, "Yes." "Who are you?" He answered, "I am Endo Tadao. I came here to call you to the mission center." "You are called there?" Fujin thought, are they finally assigning me a mission? Is he a messenger or someone who works there? He replied, "All right, I will be there." Tadao looked at Fujin. He seemed to have no intention to leave. He said, "Can you leave now? They have called you immediately." Fujin sighed and said, "All right." Tadao expected Fujin to follow him back. However, Fujin just disappeared. He was shocked. What the hell? I just blinked my eyes and he disappeared. He immediately looked around himself but didn't find anyone. However, he saw the destruction Fujin had caused in that training ground. He muttered, he really left like that. Shishiro wasn't lying about his skill and strength. He turned around and began running back to the Hokage building. Fujin flickered to the Hokage building. He entered the building and walked into the mission center. On entering, he saw a few Chunins who were working there. In addition, there were a few more ninjas. Looking at Fujin, one of the Chunin officers stood up and called him. Fujin recognized him. He was the one who assigned most of the bandit hunting missions to Team Renjiro. Fujin walked towards him while noticing two other ninjas standing in front of his desk. Shishiro said, "Fujin-kun, long time no see." Fujin nodded. He hadn't taken a mission from this room since the mission to the land of tea. Shishiro asked, "Where is Tadao?" Fujin replied, "The messenger?" "Not sure. I came here after he asked me to." Shishiro was dumbfounded. He sighed and said, "He isn't the messenger. He will be your teammate for the next mission." Fujin thought, really? He seemed weak. Was he hiding his strength? Shishiro introduced the two ninjas next to him. He is Kimiyama Yasuoka and he is Obake Kania. Along with Endo Tadao, they will be in your team. You will be the leader of this team for this mission. Fujin's eyebrows twitched. He thought, both their chakra levels are weak as well. Don't tell me. Shishiro took a document and handed it to Fujin. Fujin read the title and his face immediately became dark. Shishiro said, "Your mission is to eliminate this new bandit group. They have been creating a lot of trouble." Fujin looked at him and handed him the document back. He said, "I don't want it. Call me when you have any rank B mission for me." Yasuoka and Kania burned in embarrassment. A kid half their age was refusing to do a mission they couldn't undertake without supervision. Shishiro sighed and said, "Fujin, you have just become a Chunin. Even if you are assigned a rank B mission, you won't be selected as the team leader. That role will be taken by the more experienced Chunins. You will have to undertake rank C missions to build up your leadership skills. Only once you lead in a large number of rank C missions, will you be able to lead rank B missions. Fujin observed Shisuro. He sensed that he wasn't lying. But he also sensed that what he said was complete bullshit. The reason that he was giving him this mission was just so he could get a laugh from Fujin's reaction. Fujin was sure that he would give Hoka and Miko bandit elimination missions as well. Fujin was about to leave, but Shisuro stopped him and began giving a number of reasons to take this mission. Wanting to get him off his back, Fujin finally agreed. However, he said, this is the last time I am taking a rank C mission. The next time you assign me a bandit elimination mission, I'll forge evidence that you are their ringleader. Shisuro smiled and handed him the document back. Tadao finally returned to the mission center. He was breathing heavily. Fujin looked at his three new subordinates and asked, when do you guys want to leave for the mission? Yasuoka answered, we are ready to leave anytime. Fujin said, all right. Let's meet at the village gate in a couple of hours. Fujin left to have his lunch. Tadao, Yasuoka, and Kania saw him leave. Tadao asked, are we getting too old? Kania refused, no way. I am not even married yet. Yasuoka sighed at his teammates' antics. He said, well, at least he is strong. Though he seems to be very arrogant. He didn't put us in his eyes at all. Shisuro chuckled and patted his back. He said, don't worry. He is very reasonable and balanced. And he is very strong. From what I heard, he is even stronger than me. And he has a reputation for being the bandit exterminator. You guys will be fine. Tadao, Yasuoka, and Kania sighed. They knew they had been set up by Shisuro. All four of them were 22 years old. They were in the same year in the academy and were good friends. Unfortunately, the three of them weren't very talented. They never managed to be promoted to Chunin and had already given up on it. They stayed together as a team and would only take rank C missions occasionally for the money and to stay in shape. Shisuro was a bit more talented than them. He managed to be promoted to the Chunin rank in the Third Great Ninja War. But he became weary of risking his life and took a desk job. After a couple of hours, Fujin and the three genins assembled. Fujin asked, have you prepared the necessary weapons and rations for the mission? All three genins nodded awkwardly as many were watching when Fujin asked this question. Fujin asked, what are your specialties? Tadao said, I am good at throwing shurikens. I can hit a bullseye every single time. Yasuoka said, I have mastered water nature manipulation. While there was no change in Fujin's expression, he scoffed in his mind, mastered? Why don't you put your name down as a candidate for the 5th Hokage? Kania said, I can observe our surroundings carefully and pick up on clues. Fujin nodded and said, all right, let's go. However, Tadao stopped him, wait Fujin. Can you tell us about your specialties? Fujin stopped and turned around. He answered, I know a bit of wind and earth nature manipulation and am good with clones. After answering he turned around and began leaving. The trio were a bit surprised. They expected the preteen to brag about his prowess. But, he didn't show off at all. They quickly followed him. Chapter 150, A Scheme Targeting Konoha. Fujin and his squad moved quickly through the forest. Kania took the position at the front while Fujin was in the rear. Occasionally, Fujin used to activate his chakra field and sense his surroundings. Fujin sighed thinking, this is tough without Hoka. I could divide this job with him to reduce my workload. And, his eyes could notice the stuff I missed and vice versa. After some time, Yasuoka asked, Fujin, you became a Chunin in the last Chunin exam, right? Fujin replied, yes. Yasuoka asked again, who were your sensei and teammates? Yasuoka and his teammates were getting very bored by moving without talking even a bit. And talking among themselves while ignoring Fujin would have been rude. So Yasuoka began talking with Fujin. Fujin didn't have much of an interest in interacting with them. There wasn't much benefit in doing it. But, as they kept on talking, Fujin realized that those guys were fun. So their talks became more cordial. At some point, Fujin asked, how often do you guys do such missions? Tadao answered, it depends on our expenses. Usually, we do 1 or 2 missions per month. Shisuro assigns a Chunin to our team to lead the mission. Fujin asked, and do you always do missions together? Kania nodded, yes. For rank C missions, we are together as a team. But, if someone needs some extra money, then they take some rank D missions solo. Fujin thought, not bad. I guess it is a good method of making money. Well, at least to handle day-to-day needs. Plus with the same team, they should be very familiar with each other and should have solid teamwork. Unfortunately, they are too weak. If they were at least Chunins, their team could have been slightly famous. They continued moving towards their target. While moving, Fujin seriously considered, should I create such a team too? Having teammates with a good bond, teamwork, and complementary skills could ease up the missions quite well. But, even if I decide to make such a squad, who should I include? The only ones that come to mind are Miko and Hoka. Perhaps I could even ask Teru and Yuri as well. Though I haven't met them for over a year. That said, both Miko and Yuri will die soon. So there isn't much point in including them. Also, both Hoka and Teru are quite headstrong. And, neither have the fire element or the genjutsu skills that an Uchiha brings to the table. Fujin thought for a bit before finally giving up, leave it. Such a team works for these guys because they are all equally weak and have no great ambitions. Among the strong, no such teams ever formed. The only squad with an all S-rank roster that comes to my mind is the Sunnins. And, even they broke up. The journey to the reported area took 7 hours. Fujin sighed internally, if I was with my previous squad, we could have reached here in 3 hours. Unfortunately, not only were these guys slow, but they also needed 2 breaks. I guess expecting the same level of fitness and capability as my old squad was a bit too much. Probably only Umbu or Jounin squads will have a higher efficiency than us. Fujin and the Genins were observing the area. There were clear signs of a fight happening at that place. Yasuoka observed the surroundings and said, there are multiple broken carts here. Looks like the attack had taken place here. Kania snorted in displeasure, those cocky bandits didn't even bother to hide and cover up their actions. Fujin too wondered about that, that's weird. None of the dozens of bandit camps we cleared had such stupid bandits. It's as if they want to let others know that they created trouble. But why would a bandit group attract unwanted attention? The weirdness of the situation suddenly increased Fujin's alertness to the max. Kania began observing the clues. He said, according to the clues, they are. However, Fujin interrupted him, southwestern direction. About 1,100 meters from here. Move quickly and quietly. The trio were surprised. They never thought that Fujin would be a censor as well. They immediately followed his instructions without any complaints or doubts. They moved over a kilometer in the direction that Fujin pointed before they could see the camp. Kania was very surprised. He said softly, first they left all the clues on the road. And they have a camp out in the open? Sure, it's in the forest, but there is no cover for them at all when someone finds them. Yasuoka and Tadao were confused too. The place had multiple small huts made of bamboo and leaves. They were spread over 100 meters and could probably hold around 60 bandits. There was no natural protection other than the forests. However, Fujin's attention was on something else. Oh, I see. There is one ninja among this bandit group. And he seems to be at the Chunin level. Is he behind this stupidity? Or is he scheming up something? Fujin's eyes moved towards his temporary subordinates as he thought, having subordinates is kinda nice. I'll let them test the waters. If it's just this guy, then I will assassinate him. If he is indeed cooking up some scheme, then they will be good meat shields. I'll stay back and observe what scheme is being cooked here. Sigh, they kinda seem good. Unfortunately, this world is too dangerous. If something were to happen to them, then it's their own fault for being so weak. Fujin steeled his resolve. He said, you guys begin the assault. Move quietly and eliminate as many as you before alerting the whole camp. I'll stay behind and observe in case there is anything fishy. Tadao, Yasuoka, and Kania nodded and moved. They weren't aware that there was someone stronger than them among the bandits. Fujin stayed behind and observed them. In the central hut of the camp, a large man was relaxing on a rather comfortable deck chair. Two slim ladies were around him, one massaging his shoulders and another his thighs. Both had scared looks on their face. The man grinned like a pervert while enjoying the treatment. Some other bandits in the room were looking at them lecherously. The man sitting in the chair was Idainki. He was a hot-headed Chunin from Kyomagakuer. Due to his hot-headedness, he killed a civilian and hence ended up in a prison. Fortunately for him, he was able to get out of prison due to special circumstances. A month ago in the Raikage office, an old man entered the Raikage's office and placed some documents in front of him. He was an elder in Kyomagakuer. He said, these are some reports that we received from the Land of Fire. Mabi took the reports and began reading. The fourth Raikage frowned. He asked, is Konoha up to something? The old man shook her head and said, no, this is related to their trade. In the past couple of months, their trade has suddenly boomed. If their trade continues to increase at this rate, then they will earn a lot of money which they can use to train more ninjas. A's frown deepened. He said, Konoha controls the richest and the most fertile land in this world. If they begin growing rapidly, then their strength can once again surpass us. The old man nodded and said, yes. And if that happens, then war will have to be started again to prevent Konoha from getting too strong. Though Minato died and Orochimaru betrayed them, their strength is still quite strong. Some of their younger ninjas are gaining fame quickly. We need to ensure that Konoha's growth is at least slowed so that we don't have to go to another war. Ace immediately became angry. He said, just a few years ago we could force them to hand over an elite jounin. And now they are becoming a threat again. However, the old man calmed him down. I would advise you not to make such a reckless move again, Lord Fourth. Konoha promoted a lot of Chunins to jounins in this period. More importantly, our spies have reported that IWA is recovering its strength rapidly too. That fence sitter is spending a huge amount of money on raising new ninjas. If Konoha decides to retaliate instead of being desperate for peace, then we could get in a pickle. A calmed down slightly. He asked, what do you suggest then? The old man said, according to my sources, Konoha's trade suddenly boomed as their bandits were killed at a rapid pace. So we should increase their bandit groups. I thought for a bit. He looked at Mabi and said, Mabi, see if we have any useful prisoners. We will release them and let them be rogue ninjas inside the land of fire and have them start more bandit groups. Mabi nodded and left to check their data. The old man said, while Konoha doesn't have the strength to retaliate against us, it'll be better if we don't leave any clues behind. A nodded and said, yes, I know that. It'll be annoying if they retaliate with similar measures. Though if they do, I'll smash them all.